lesson will be about photosynthesis. You might already have some information from the last unit, structures. But here are some important things to remember. It's the most important, or at least one of the most important, chemical processes on Earth. It gives all kinds of food for all different organisms, including plants and humans. If we break down the word photosynthesis, photo, like a photograph or a photographer, means light. Synthesis, as you might remember from the unit on enzymes, you might remember that it means to put together or to build something. So literally, we're building something, we're building sugar with the use of light energy. If we break photosynthesis down, we should remember that there are basically 3 reactants, 3 things going into the plant, and then 2 products over on the right-hand side coming out. So let's look at this picture. Number 1, what does the sun give to the plant? Well, hopefully you know, energy. Sunlight is a form of energy that the plant is going to use to convert to a different kind of energy. Number 2, what enters the plant through the leaves? If you notice, this is in the air, and the air that plants breathe in is carbon dioxide. Number 3, what enters the plant through the soil? Notice on the bottom, this is what we have to do to our plants in order to keep them alive. We add water. Now, those are all our reactants. That's what goes into the plant in order for the reaction to happen. Coming out are the products. So number 4, what gas exits the plant from the leaves? The gas that leaves is actually oxygen. This is why it's so good for humans or animals to have plants around, because we breathe in that oxygen. Number 5, what is being made or produced inside the leaves of the plant? The ultimate goal of photosynthesis is to create glucose, which is just a form of simple sugar or carbohydrates. So now let's look at the chemical equation. If we're using words, carbon dioxide plus water with the addition of sunlight yields, we say yields when we see that arrow, glucose and oxygen. If we use chemical symbols, it looks like this. Now don't get too afraid of all of these different letters and numbers. It just means 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water yields glucose, which is represented by C6H12O6, plus 6 molecules of oxygen. One thing you should remember are that CO2 represents carbon dioxide, H2O represents water, C6H12O6 represents glucose, and O2 represents oxygen. That'll help you out later in chemistry as well. So plants, what are they? They basically give energy to the rest of the ecosystem. So they also need energy to live, but unlike animals, they don't have to actually go out and kill and eat food to get their energy. So we call animals heterotrophs, or consumers, because they have to eat something. Notice that all of these images are of animals that need to eat something, heterotrophs. Plants we call autotrophs because they can make their own food. Think of the prefix auto as self and troph as feeder. So they're self-feeders. They can make their own food, make their own energy. Stomates and guard cells in the leaf. So stomates are specific kinds of openings that are in plant cells, and guard cells, there's always 2, they're paired up, surround the stomate in the middle. Their function is to bring carbon dioxide in, takes oxygen out, and water out. So this happens in the leaves in order for photosynthesis to take place. You can see some examples here of actual guard cells in different plants. So the function of the guard cells is to open and close the stomates. The stomates are what let everything in and out, and the guard cells will either open or close depending on their role. Here's a quick clip showing how stomata work.
Structure and working. of stomata. In plants, most photosynthesis takes place in the leaf. Let us observe a leaf section to understand the location of stomata. The outermost layer is the waxy cuticle. Under the upper epidermal layer is a layer of palisade cells containing the chloroplasts. Beneath the palisade cells is the spongy tissue with air spaces. The stomata are located mainly in the lower epidermis. Stomata are nothing but minute pores in the lower epidermis of a leaf. Let us now observe a single stoma closely. The two bean-shaped cells enclosing the stoma are the specialized guard cells. The guard cells have a number of chloroplasts present in them. Observe that guard cells have a thin outer wall and a thick inner wall. The guard cells play a vital role by regulating the opening and closing of stoma. They control the exchange of gases between the leaf and the atmosphere. Air containing carbon dioxide and oxygen enters the plant through these openings, where it gets used in photosynthesis and respiration, respectively. During the day, the stomatal pores are open and gaseous carbon dioxide enters the leaves. Waste oxygen produced by photosynthesis in the cells of the leaf interior exits through these same openings. Also, water vapor is released into the atmosphere through these pores in a process called transpiration.
So now let's talk about factors affecting the rate of photosynthesis. There are 5 different factors that we'll discuss. The first one is temperature. So as it gets warmer, most of the time photosynthesis will continue to increase. This is why plants like particularly warmer climates. So if you go to a place like Central America where it's warm most of the year, you'll see lots of luscious plants that live year-round. In places in the north where it gets a little colder at some points in the year, you'll see that there's photosynthesis or no photosynthesis during those months. Light intensity. Again, this works the same way that temperature. So it'll increase the rate of photosynthesis up to a certain point, and then at one point where it gets too much temperature, too much light, it will not do as well. So it'll start decreasing the rate of photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide level is the exact same way that temperature and light work. So again, it increases as it gets more and more, but at a certain point, it's too much. Water. If you decrease water, you'll decrease photosynthesis. So that's a very direct relationship. And finally, minerals. Certain minerals are very important for plants to grow, and they'll actually improve the rate of photosynthesis. Examples of minerals include magnesium and nitrogen. Sometimes you'll see plants or people using fertilizers, which actually have extra minerals in them in order to help the plant grow a little bit better. All right, so let's recap a few questions just to see how well you were paying attention. First question, what are the reactants of photosynthesis? You should remember that there are 3 specific reactants. They include carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. Those are all necessary in order for photosynthesis to occur. Sunlight is really just the catalyst that sets the reaction off. Carbon dioxide and water are the main reactants. Number 2, what are the products of photosynthesis? So what's being produced or made? You should know that oxygen and glucose are being made. Oxygen is more of a byproduct. It's not something that's necessary at that point for the plant, although we will talk about next cellular respiration that uses that oxygen. Glucose is the main product, however, of photosynthesis. And finally, in which organelle does photosynthesis occur? You should remember this from Unit 2 on the cell structures. Chloroplast. Okay, if you got all of those right, you're doing pretty well. If not, maybe you should watch this one more time.